Hi everyone, and welcome to the second part of a two-part video which I'm doing, in which I'm watching David Lynch's movie Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. I've watched the first about 30 minutes or so of the movie, and the link to my video of that is in the description below. I've watched until the point where about Cooper says who knows where or when the killer will strike again, and then we see Laura. So this beginning of the Laura story, it's much more familiar feeling. The music is there, the Twin Peaks theme. Some of the characters from the series are there, such as Mike, Bobby, and there's a general feeling that everything is fine, everything is stress-free. And there's this kind of dreamy atmosphere, this first-person perspective we see from the camera angle of Laura, and she kind of looks like dreamy as she's walking along. Everyone is cool and hip and carefree. Kind of reminds me of a poem by Dylan Thomas, Fernhill, when he says everything was young and easy. So let's address the Donna recast quickly. It has never bothered me. I like Moira Kelly. I think she's a great actress, and I think that the recast actually works very, very well. You know, after the series, I'm not sure what happened with Laura Flynn Boyle. I think she became quite famous, and she was known, you know, for her sex appeal at the time, and I think that actually this recast might have worked a little bit better for people who watched the movie back then, because of the fact that I think Moira Kelly is a little more girl next door-ish. She's still, you know, they're both very sexy women, very alluring women, but I think that the kind of Donna that we see with Laura before Laura dies is a kind of innocent, naive girl who exists in a kind of slightly slave and master relationship with Laura. Laura calls all the shots, whereas Laura Flynn Boyle played the Donna that was free. She had to act out some of the anxieties of that freedom, such as having to handle the relationship with James all of a sudden. But I think in terms of, maybe just in a physical sense, that, you know, the actresses who played these two sides of Donna, it worked out well, I think. And I think, you know, Laura was playing the Donna who was just exploring her burgeoning sexuality, whereas Moira, I think Moira is really cute and sort of, in terms of what Moira had been in before, the kind of thing I remember seeing her in prior to this movie is like The Cutting Edge, the romantic movie. So I think for me she was a kind of a good choice as someone who had to play innocent and uncorrupted, and the actress was not touched by that sort of world of fame and notoriety for her sexuality, which might have disrupted the sort of believability. And it's really awkward to see Donna on the outskirts of this relationship with James as well. She's like the third wheel. It's almost embarrassing. It doesn't take long before we see the real kind of Laura in trouble sort of thing, when she goes to the bathrooms and starts taking drugs. And I also think, you know, the next scene, we don't actually see her in class or anything like that. We cut to the scene of her with James in the locker room, and it's overtly sexual. Unexpected, I think, considering how, I don't want to say placid, but considering how placid and sweet James was in the series. We see this James confronted with this very openly sexual Laura. She seems to be very much spiraling out of control in the relationship with James, and he's trying to sort of reel her back in and trying to calm her down a little bit, but she seems mentally as though she's not quite there. James is seems pretty needy towards Laura, you know, asking her never to leave. James certainly seems like he really needs Laura, needs that kind of life force that she gives him. So we see this scene with Bobby at the school. Firstly, it's weird to see them in school because even all throughout the series Twin Peaks, we hardly ever saw them in school, any of the kid characters. Seeing them interact in the school environment is kind of weird. And then we see Bobby threaten to kind of check out of Laura's life and leave her alone. And we see this kind of first glimpse of how Laura uses her sexuality and sensuality to control men, because all she has to do is kind of put on this sweet little face and come hither eyes and she has him on a hook straight away. People dancing like that, Bobby dancing backwards. It's kind of a cool kind of school I wish I went to. I don't know if the relationship between Laura and Donna has disintegrated towards the end of Laura's life, but certainly the way she speaks to Donna in this scene in her living room, it's a little bit disturbing because she's quite dismissive of Donna, I would say, a little. You know, she kind of implies that it's none of Donna's business what she does at night. She kind of mocks her a little bit. Whether that's a sign that Laura's empathy has been eroded by her situation, I don't know. Maybe it's a sign of her desperately trying to keep her secret life a secret because it's so bad. Very sweet and very gorgeous. I don't think that could describe James Moore, to be honest. He's a very pure kind of guy. But when Laura says that about him, it's almost like she has a moment of recognition that should she be around someone that pure, should she, you know, is she worthy of being in the same company of someone that's that pure. And Donna says this strange thing about, you know, falling in space, which kind of stills Laura and makes her tap into something. Seemingly, it looks like she's tapping into some part of her mind and her reasoning that is really true to her and which she understands. That feeling of emptiness, of loneliness, of being in a place that is unfamiliar, of being out of control and falling, feeling like you can never go back. I think that what Donna says sets off all these thoughts in Laura, and she kind of can predict her own future, I think, by relating it in this symbolic way. Okay, so we see Laura visit Harold, and from what Harold says to her about Bob not being real, it's clear that he has thought that maybe Laura had some kind of, was using Bob as a sort of imaginary figure, or that maybe the whole of her stories were fictional, or maybe you know, the fantasies of a young girl. But then she tries to tell Harold that Bob is real, and she says that Bob wants to be her or he'll kill her. When Laura assumes this kind of face, this hideous kind of face that, you know, she's transformed into some kind of demonic creature, I think Harold seems to see that as well because he reacts to it. I think it's can be assumed that Laura is being affected by the kind of the negativity, desire for fear and hate and pain that and sorrow that some of the spirits from the Black Lodge have. When she kisses Harold at first, it's sort of tender, and then it turns into this greedy sexual kiss, and she breaks down into tears. And for me, as a woman viewer watching this, I have always felt that kind of, that's Laura crying because every kind of relationship she has with a man has to go down that sexual route. It is all, you know, think of all the men she has sexual relations with, and I think that just exasperates her at that point because she doesn't want to be there with Harold. She would prefer Harold to be just a friend. I think she feels exploited and a little bit used, that so many men want sex from her, and and when she breaks down kissing Harold, I think that moment expresses that to me. I certainly don't get the feeling that Laura really loves him and wants to have any kind of lasting relationship with him. I think it's purely giving herself to him, giving herself to Harold. Okay, so we get this flashback out of Twin Peaks back to Cooper talking to Albert. You know, Albert comes across as a real kind of skeptic. I think he might have been a character that used to be a hardened skeptic about anything supernatural, and that gradually, maybe through his work with Gordon Cole and the rest of the agents on these Blue Rose cases, that he might have mellowed a little bit. At least he is willing to hear some of the ideas, willing to accept it to a certain extent. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't quiz Cooper like this. Even though he expresses his skepticism, he still asks Cooper about predicting the next victim. And I think he asks this because he truly feels like Cooper could potentially give him the answers, not just so he can wisecrack about it. I see Laura doing the Meals on Wheels. There's no love lost between her and Shelley. It's something that, you know, you don't really think about during the series, that Bobby and Shelley must have been seeing each other at the same time Bobby was seeing Laura and Laura was seeing James. Very odd meeting between the grandmother and the grandson and Laura, in which she gives Laura the picture. I don't know what the picture is or where it is supposed to be. The wallpaper kind of looks a little like the wallpaper at One-Eyed Jack's with the roses on it, but I don't think that it's meant to be there. So Laura goes home and she sees Bob in her house, and then she sees her father, and she connects the two and has this moment of realization, but she kind of wants to be in denial about it. This scene with the Palmer family is very uncomfortable. I think it's almost like a straightforward abuse storyline and scene without any kind of supernatural element to it, and that's why it feels so raw and real, the kind of abuse that the father is subjecting his daughter to. Also, I think Sarah Palmer's role in this scene suggests that she may be a kind of weak figure, a weak mother figure, because she handles it really badly. She just swings from an apathetic kind of outlook towards what's going on with Leland and Laura to complete manic hysteria, neither of which kind of help anything. I think she's clearly scared of Leland's temper as well, and that you can see from this scene that this has probably happened quite a lot of times before. The fact that Leland is so interested in Laura's sexual life and a boyfriend's, and he makes the cross comment about how do you know what she likes, it just feels very disturbing. And you know, this is followed up just by like nothing has happened, sit down and eat dinner from Sarah. We get the symbolic request of kind of washing your hands, like, you know, cleaning up the mess after you've been touched by me, sort of thing. It's really... We see this red room scene with Cooper and the little man who calls himself the Arm. I guess is a reference to Philip Gerard's Arm. Kind of makes me think of, like, you know, when you cut a worm in half and the worm survives. Laura has this dream where she is told not to take the ring by Cooper. It seems to be a dream, but is it actually happening because time works differently in the Red Room and Cooper is still there? You know, Annie appears on the bed in a bloodied state in the same way we see her at the end of the series, and she says to Laura, "I've been with Dale and Laura," as if she's been with a different Laura. So Donna comes to Laura's house, and again Laura is pretty nasty. I think Donna she almost comes across as being a little bit pathetic, I guess, because of taking this shit from Laura. You know, Laura behaves as if she's much more superior, kind of experienced. Whether that's to protect Donna from the kind of lifestyle she's living, I don't know. Or whether it's because, because she's been changed by her experiences with Bob. So we see this scene where Laura meets the two guys. She's basically prostituting herself, and you have to ask yourself, why is Laura doing this? Is it so that she can afford to buy the drugs, so that she can kind of numb herself and get through life and block out the negativity and pain that she's feeling? Or is it because of another reason, perhaps? If, like she said before, Bob wants to be me or he'll kill me, that may imply that, you know, the lodge spirits are kind of feeding off Laura's life form, and therefore the more extreme her sensory and physical experiences are, the more satisfying it is for them. That might be something to think about. Okay, so there's this scene where we see Laura and Leland pursued by Mike, or Philip Gerard, and some of the things he says, they refer back to saw what was going on in the convenience store with the lodge spirits, and he references the creamed corn again. This might seem like a very strange thing again, and he also references the Formica table. It's almost like these things are kind of references to the lodge spirits' sensory experiences, if you know what I mean. He mentions a look on the face of a woman, who I assume is Teresa Banks, and says that when the creamed corn was open there was a stillness to her, which I assume means she had died. And he says that she was like a Formica tabletop. Again, that's kind of, to me, that's kind of referring to how, almost like how kids look at like textures and patterns, and they like to touch things and, you know, see shiny things, and it kind of reminds me as well of the last scene of the series with Cooper squeezing out the toothpaste tube. That's something that is very much something you would like to do, just to be able to play with the feeling of that. It's almost like the lodge spirits aren't used to having the physical sensations of what it means to be human. And, you know, the Formica tabletop metaphor, that's the only thing that they can marry to the idea of this woman being dead. So it is assumed that the creamed corn in some way might represent the pain and hurt of a person. Leland has this flashback when he's in the car to Teresa Banks and what went on with her, and we see a very different side to Leland. We see this odd moment where the grandson appears in the mask again. Just why is the boy there? Because they seem to be some kind of support system to Bob. And I think this attack by Mike is sort of a symbolic of the fallout of the lodge spirits. Why does the ring have such significance? Is it some kind of symbol of, is it kind of like where the ring goes, the lodge spirits will follow, or is it some kind of conductor? The materials of the ring, is the ring kind of a branding? You know, is it like when a cow is branded with a hot iron? Is that the kind of, maybe the owl cave symbol is like, yeah, you're next for the Formica table, you're the next meal. I like this scene with Laura and Bobby, even though it's quite disturbing. It does seem kind of improvised to some extent. The actors look like they're having quite a lot of fun until the gruesome moments. I think Bobby, you know, the characterization of Bobby in the film as opposed to the series, he's much more hardcore in this film. His connection to Laura Palmer is much more understandable when you see them together in this scene, and they are connected by their neediness for the drugs. I have to admit that I watched this movie for years and years without realizing that this guy that they shoot, that Bobby shoots, is the deputy from earlier on from Deer Meadow. I don't know, I just think he looked different. He looks different in this scene. He's not quite as identifiable as the earlier guy, and I don't think in the earlier scenes he was given enough significance to be memorable. So yeah, I didn't notice that for many years after watching this, that it was the same character, and that actually, you know, the drug corruption had spread through the law enforcement. So we see some very graphic violence here, probably the most graphic maybe that we've seen in Twin Peaks. Okay, and it's a very disturbing scene afterwards with Laura almost being disassociated with the event, breaking into laughter and not realizing who it is, not understanding what's really happened. You know, the whole thing about you killed Mike takes on a bit of extra significance because of the fact we don't just have Bobby's friend Mike, we have Mike from the Lodge Spirits. So Sarah sees the vision of the white horse, and I think it's probably safe to assume as well that it's not just because she has actually been drugged, and it's not just some kind of random hallucination, and that the horse probably does represent something, whether that might be something connected to the Lodge Spirits. I think Sarah sees the horses at very crucial times, just, you know, connected with Laura and Madeline. Perhaps it's some kind of warning to her. Perhaps it's her own protector, because I think when we see her look at the horse in the series, she doesn't seem to be particularly perturbed by it. Laura finally sees Bob for who he is. She's traumatized by this. We see her the next morning kind of eating some kind of cornflakes or something like that. I don't know if what she's eating is actual corn. This whole scene at the table again does make you think that Sarah Palmer has some kind of suspicion of what's going on, even if she is suppressing it. She just kind of tries to make Laura act as if everything is normal. So Laura sees this picture she has in her room. This angel disappears. Is this just a sign of her intoxication with drugs? And is she just hallucinating that, knowing what her fate will be? Or is that some kind of black magic from the forces that are pressing in around her? The scene with James is pretty intense. She seems so drugged up to the eyeballs that she barely makes sense, and yet there are a couple of moments where James can get through to her. After James says he loves her, there is that second of openness and frailty and vulnerability that she shows. She clearly is having some kind of hallucinatory experience, thinking that something is there behind James. Whether there actually is something there, I don't know. She might have kind of slipped through the fabric of maybe the lodge worlds, the world of the spirits. Who knows what she's seeing? We get this very graphic scene where the last minutes of Laura's life are shown to us. You know, all that scene with her and Ronette in the cabin. Find out in the series about what happened to Laura with the bird and the ropes and the casino chips. All these puzzle pieces that were kind of gently put together and which were kind of slightly removed from viewer experience are now kind of just shoved down our throat in this one exposing scene. I guess at this point Bob seems initially intent on killing both Ronette and Laura, but he seems to set Laura up in some kind of sacrificial mode with the mirror in front of her. When he does so, Bob's reflection appears as if he has become Laura. He is, you know, able to transfer between Laura and Leland in that time frame, because Leland suddenly says, "I thought you knew it was me," while Bob is perhaps inhabiting Laura. Laura does seem like a more important kill to Bob than Ronette, and Ronette has this visitation by an angel. It refers back to Laura seeing the angel disappear. The angel is not for her, the angels are gone, like she said when she was talking to Donna about falling through space. She predicted her own fate. When we go to the Red Room and with Leland on Bob, we see that Mike asks Bob for his gum and Bosia, and he gives him, you know, we see it being consumed. Whatever he took from Laura when she was killed, that's what he gives to Mike. That's what they consume. Okay, so just before we see Laura in the Red Room, just as we see the creamed corn being consumed, we get a shot of the monkey, again referring back to the Agent Jeffries situation. The monkey, although it's not quite audible on a lot of DVD soundtracks, the monkey apparently says Judy. I mean, why mention Judy at this point in the film? Who is Judy? Is she like an inhabitant of the White Lodge? Is she opposite the Black Lodge characters, the evil spirits? Is she good? Is she bad? Is she an angel? Why is she so involved in this world and the Blue Rose cases? I do feel that for this to be uttered at the end of the movie like this does mean that this character holds a great deal of significance. Someone connected to probably everything that's gone on. Who knows, there are endless possibilities. I kind of think that we might get an answer to this in the 2017 series though. Anyway, we see Laura at the end of the movie, and it's kind of a peaceful way to end the movie, with Laura finally getting this angel of peace and, you know, accepting this position of letting everything go, and Agent Cooper is there beside her like a protector with his hand on her shoulder, seemingly giving her courage and hope. When we see Laura crying at the end, initially looks shocked to see her own angel appear, but at this stage I think the angel is like a sign of redemption, that Laura has been redeemed. She's letting go of those who wronged her, letting go of the horror of what's happened to her. I do think, you know, we spend a lot of time on this scene at the end with Laura crying and laughing at the same time, and I think this moment in the Red Room seems to be a moment of complete peace for both Cooper and Laura, and it's almost as if Cooper is there and he has achieved his aim, in a sense of what his destiny might have been. That's it. Please comment below if you want to say anything about what you thought about Fire Walk with Me. If you have any kind of interesting interpretations or theories or feelings about the movie, I love to hear them. Next time I'm going to be reviewing the episode 15 of the season 2, so if you want to join me for that, you're very welcome. And thank you for watching, and goodbye.